Okay, so I wanted to walk through how to make a graph using Google Sheets. Um, and as an example, I'm going to use the data that we generated as our part of our Oh Dear lab today. Um, this is just some, in fact, this is not actually the data that we use because this recording was made, before class even started. So, but here is some data that kind of should look like what we got from our lab today. And so I'm going to use this as an example of how you make a graph. All right, so the first thing that you need to do is you'll start out by, I will share the class data with you. I will share the Google Sheet with you. Um, and then when you get that and you're ready to make your graph, the first thing you'll need to do is open that Google Sheet. And it will have a title, maybe something like this, probably not sample data, probably oh dear period 2 data, for example. Now, when you receive this, or when you open this document or receive this document, it's shared with you, but you can't edit it. So the first thing you need to do is save a copy or make your own copy of it. So you go to File and you make a copy. All right. Now, you need to give it a name. And so maybe a super clever name might be my copy of Oh Dear sample data. You can name it whatever you like, of course. All right, click OK, and it will open that new page for you in a second. There we go. So here's my copy. This is the one that you'd be able to edit because the version that I shared with you originally, of course, you couldn't edit. Okay, so let's start off. We would, to make a graph, the first thing you need to do is find the data that you want to graph. So we are going to graph the year versus the population. So let's highlight that data set. There's our data set, and we go to Insert and Chart. We'll pull up this menu. It looks a little intimidating at first, but we'll walk through it so that it's not a big deal. Um, so it tells you right here which data set you've selected. I guess you could use that to confirm that you're in the right place anyway, but don't worry about that right now. This tells you the data set that we're looking at. Now, we set up our row, the way the data was set up in the first place was row 1 had the headers, year and deer population. That's good. But the kind of graph that we're going to make also requires labels. So we're going to call column A our labels. Those are the year values, 1 through 15. All right. So click that box that says use column A as labels. And then we don't want a bar graph, we want a line graph. So we will, it shows us some recommended charts to start with, but we're going to click on more and go to a line graph. All right, and I would like a nice smooth graph. I don't like choppy looking graphs or whatever, so I'm going to click on smooth line chart, and you'll notice that it updates with a kind of a preview image right away. This is basically what you're after. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So that's the kind of chart we want, and we could click insert right now, but I actually want to go ahead and do some customization. All right, so click on the customize tab up here. There we go. And it will be updating over here our preview so we can keep track of how things are going. So the first section that we get to customize is the chart itself. Let's start by giving it a title. You have to have a title for a graph. So let's call this Deer Population over a 15-year period. Pretty clever title, don't you think? As soon as you click out of there, it updates your preview. Now you can modify this if you like. For example, maybe you want your title to be bigger. Maybe you want your title to be your favorite color, so you choose red. I don't know, whatever. Maybe you want it italicized. You can tinker with it a little bit to customize it. So that's how you do that. You'll notice the next section down says legend, which is this thing right here. And you can similarly customize the text for your legend. For example, maybe you want it to be the same color as your title. So you could change that, or you could make it bold, you can make it bigger, whatever. You get the idea. Modifications are possible. All right, let's scroll down a little bit. I want you to leave this stuff alone. You want to have the line smooth, so just kind of leave that as it is. A little lower down, we get to the next key section of the graph, which is the axes, actually both axes. The first axis that we're going to look at is the horizontal axis, all right? So You'll notice that it has no title. So the first thing we need to do is add a title for our horizontal axis, which should be years. Yes, because these are years. Again, as soon as you click out of there, it updates in the preview. Now, you'll notice over here in the preview that our year starts at year 1, and I don't like that. I like my graphs to start at 0, so I'm going to click in the minimum here and add a 0. Okay. And now you notice that it goes out to 20 years, which I think is a little too far. So I'm going to put a 15 here. All right. And now my graph runs from year 0 to year 15. And I'm not completely sure what this one does, except that I like it turned off. All allow bounds to hide data. Make sure that's not clicked. And then you can see, I like the way this graph looks. It runs from 0 out to 15. There are 5-year intervals, all very good. If you wanted to tweak the way the axis labels, the 0, 5, 10, and 15, how they looked, you could do that right here. I'm happy with it, so I'm going to leave it alone. If you wanted to change the grid lines, so for example, you could make whoops, nope, that doesn't work the way I thought it would. So yeah, so you could have change the number of marks that you get on the x-axis. You could do that. If you put it at 5, 0, 5, 10, and 15, you can tweak that a little bit to make it just the way you want it to be. All right, and then the last part in this section is the scale. Just leave that as it is, the default scale. That's all good. Now we can scroll back up and make some tweaks to our y-axis, which they're actually calling the left vertical axis. Okay, now we're changing this guy over here. All right, so the title might be number of deer. Clever title, right? Again, you'll notice that it starts at 2 and goes to 30. I kind of don't like starting at 2. I want to start at 0, so I'll put 0 in as my minimum. Again, turn off this allow bounds to hide data because I just don't like the way it looks. There you go. So now we have a y-axis title, an x-axis title. We have a label, a legend, and we have a title for the graph itself. Again, if you want to change grid lines or number format, you could do that here. I think it looks fine the way it is, so I'm happy. And then we get to the last thing that you can change down here, which is labeled series. Now, in this chart making program, you can have multiple lines. We only have one line, but if we had a bunch of different lines, you could check them here. We only have one. We're only graphing one set of data, just the deer population. You could change the color of the line. Maybe you want to make that your favorite color too. You can make the line thicker, for example, like that. I don't kind of like that. I want it like this, but whatever. This thing though, I want you to tweak. See, it says point size and it says none. Right now, it's not showing the data points at all. So I actually would like I prefer personally that 7 pixel size so that you can see the actual dots like beads on a string. All right, so now we can see that better, I think. So don't leave that at 0. I think you should put the point size on there so we can see the actual data. There's nothing else to do on this. Our graph is complete, so I'm going to click on Insert. And boom, there you go. Your graph is in place. Now you'll notice that it's covering up your data, so I would probably drag it over here. Once you click outside of it, it's a nice snappy looking little graph and you're good to go. That means the graph is created. Now you need to get it into your document. So let's pause for a second.